Tara was 3 years old when her mother left her and her father for another man. She remembered her very vaguely, and when she became an adult, she finally stopped recalling her mother, who did not need her. Tara was living with her father and was happy. Tara's father never let his daughter get bored, much less cry, and although they lived modestly, they had enough money for visits to exhibitions and theatres, and for trips to the mountains or the sea. Most of all, the girl liked the mountains. They always attracted Tara, but she could only admire them from afar. Her father worried about his daughter and wouldn't allow her to go to the mountain climbing, and she had to give up her dream. But as hikers, she and her father visited the mountains frequently and went for long walks, admiring the rushing mountain rivers and waterfalls. One day, when Tara was 7 years old, while camping with her father in the mountains, she saw a boy about 10 years old fixing a safety harness on himself. His mother was standing next to him, holding 2 helmets. Tara said hello to them and asked, "Are you real climbers?" The boy nodded. "We're waiting for my dad. He'll be here now and we'll start climbing." "Are you climbing too?" Tara sighed and said she would love to, but her father wouldn't let her. Seeing him approaching, she waved cheerfully at him. "Daddy, just imagine! These are real climbers," she said excitedly. "Well then, let me take a picture of you all," Tara's father replied with a smile. This picture became Tara's favourite, and it still stands on the shelf in her room, but unfortunately, she hadn't even asked the boy's name then. Years went by. Tara graduated with honours from school, then from university. To celebrate the event, her father invited his daughter to a restaurant. Sitting with Tara at a table, her father was looking at Tara and sadly thought about how quickly she had grown up. From a little inquisitive girl, she somehow, imperceptibly, turned into a charming young woman with a soft smile and kind eyes. At dinner they laughed merrily and talked about all kinds of topics. The father cautiously asked if his daughter was going to get married, and she assured him that when it happened, he would know about it at once. He smiled. There had never been any secrets or misunderstandings between them, and so he decided to be frank too. "You know, we have a new employee in the office recently. Her name is Hayley." The father hesitated a little. "I think she's a very kind and pretty woman. Do you think I'm too old to—" "Daddy, you're not old at all." Tara looked at her father in surprise and laughed. "I'm so glad you've finally met a woman you'll be happy with. Will you introduce us?" "Of course, dear," smiled the father. Soon after that day, her father said to Tara that Hayley had invited them to dinner. That evening, Tara saw her father next to a woman for the first time. The calm, pleasant, and modest Hayley really impressed Tara. The girl saw how they looked at each other, how tenderly they held hands, and was glad that her father was finally loved and happy. The evening went wonderfully, and the next day, Tara decided to have a serious talk with her father. "Daddy, I want you and Hayley to live together. It would be easier and more comfortable for you, and I'm going to rent myself a separate apartment. I'm an adult. It was time to do it. What do you think of my idea?" "Well, Tara, I've been waiting a long time for a conversation like this. You're an adult. You're a very independent, determined, and serious girl. I'll let you go free. If you'd like, let's explore a good option together." They immediately went to look for suitable options in a modern apartment complex near Tara's work, and quickly found a small but very cosy studio apartment. Tara was happy with her new home. But she was able to enjoy the peace and quiet for exactly 1 week, until her new neighbours moved into the apartment above. Tara didn't understand what was going on up there, but they constantly had something falling, jingling, and she could hear screaming, sometimes even at night. Once the girl took some of her work home to study important documents in peace, but she quickly realized that nothing would work. Something incomprehensible was going on in the apartment above again, and Tara, unable to endure this outrage any longer, resolutely went up to the floor above and rang the doorbell instantly. The noise had stopped, but no one opened the door. However, the next door opened, and an elderly woman looked out from behind it. "It's no use calling. They don't open to anyone. I tried to reach the district police officer, but he talked to them and left, and they were still making noise. I only saw a young woman who often came in with heavy grocery bags. I often heard her voice arguing with someone." Tara was indignant, but went back to her place with nothing. A week later, the sounds finally got quieter. Tara was happy to find peace again, until one day, about a month later, she saw her stretch ceiling sag dangerously above her head, taking a bizarre bulging shape. Tara rushed out of the apartment with all her might. She had never been so angry. "Just open the door, and I'll give you a scandal, you shameless!" The thought beat frantically in her head as she pressed and pressed the doorbell. The door swung open so suddenly that Tara was confused, and then she lowered her eyes to see a young man sitting in a wheelchair. He was all wet and dishevelled. "You must be the neighbour downstairs. I'm sorry. I guess I flooded you. You see, the faucet in the bathroom had broken down, and while I was able to shut it off, the water leaked to you. I'll give you money to fix it. Don't worry. Come on in, but don't slip. I've got floods everywhere." Tara's heart squeezed with pity and remorse. It was clear to her now that it was the young man's wheelchair that had been making that noise. She imagined how difficult it was for her neighbour to get in and out of it every time, and also she was struck by his unexpectedly soft and pleasant voice. She felt insanely sad and hurt that such a handsome and strong man could only get around in a wheelchair. She was so upset that she didn't immediately realize that the man had already returned from the room and was holding out money to her. No, I don't need it. I'll fix it myself. I'm sorry, I had no idea." The girl shook her head. "But wait, I can't let you do that. It's my fault." The man was embarrassed. Tara mumbled some kind of apology again and left the apartment. She went down a couple of steps, but suddenly she turned around and saw that he was watching her. An idea crossed her mind abruptly. She asked his name and who he lived with. "My name is Sean. I used to live with my wife, but she left me recently, and now I'm alone. Why, do you need this?" "My name is Tara. I thought it might be hard for you to remove all the water yourself. Why don't I help?" Sean looked at Tara carefully and, shaking his head negatively, was about to close the door in front of her, but the girl prevented him from doing so. After much wrangling, Tara prevailed, and, taking a bucket and a rag, quickly tidied up Sean's apartment. Then she called a handyman, who solved the problems with the ceiling and the faucet. The next evening, Tara's doorbell rang. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see Sean on the threshold with a cake and a bouquet of flowers. "Here, I came to thank you for your help. You have no idea how much you have helped me out." In half an hour, they were sitting next to each other at the table like best friends, and Tara was listening intently to Sean's stories. To her surprise, he turned out to be an interesting conversationalist. Since childhood, he had travelled a lot and managed to explore not only his own country, but also many other ones. Now his parents were living abroad, but they often kept in touch with their son. Suddenly, Sean stopped talking and looked attentively at the shelf with pictures. He was interested in Tara's favourite picture, where, next to a pretty little girl in a red jumpsuit, stood a boy in a mountaineering gear. Sean asked to get a closer look at it. "Where did you get it?" he said excitedly. "'Cause that's me." Then they sat and talked for a long time, marvelling at such a coincidence. Sean told Tara that mountain climbing had been his passion since childhood, and he could not imagine his life without mountains. His wife, Rosemary, was also a mountaineer, but a year ago, during their honeymoon, which they had also decided to spend in the mountains, an accident happened. During one of the climbs, Rosemary's carabiner burst, and she fell, but he managed to grab her hand and pull her toward him. Only the ledge was too small that he himself couldn't hold on and fell down. The man had undergone several surgeries, but never got back on his feet. Rosemary was patient at first, but then began to snap at him. It has become especially hard lately. She threw tantrums every day, beat the dishes, accused him of tying her hands and feet. He told her many times that he wasn't holding her, and that if she wanted to, she could leave him. He didn't need her help or her pity. Eventually she did, and soon the divorce papers came. "You know, Tara, I don't even go out anymore. It's the first time I've ever been out." "How's that? What about the flowers, the cake?" The girl looked at him confused. "Delivery," smiled Sean. The next day, Tara persuaded Sean to come downstairs, and they went for a walk in the park together, and then had dinner at her house. Their meetings became a daily occurrence. Tara surrounded Sean with care, made sure he took the necessary remedies, and invited a good masseur to visit him. In addition to regular walks in the park, together they attended a fitness club where Sean worked out on a special program. And then they confessed their love for each other. Sean promised Tara that if she was ready to wait, he would definitely say his vows of love to her in front of the priest, but only standing on his own feet. And she was waiting. At first, Sean replaced his wheelchair with crutches, and once the day came when, standing confidently on one knee in front of Tara, he asked, "Darling, will you marry me?" Tara nodded and cried in agreement. From the church, Sean carried her in his arms, and she, hugging the strong shoulder of her husband, felt truly happy.